Okay, so how do we make the perfect ReZero game? Now I know, we've gotten ReZero games in the past, but to be honest, they could be better. I still feel like we haven't quite touched the pinnacle of the potential a series like this could bring to the gaming genre. So in this video, let me spit this idea I have for one that I think a lot of us can get behind. An exclaimer, this shit is going to be hella girthy and elaborate because I've had way too much time to think about this. But trust me, I have banger ideas for this bitch, so strap the fuck in and walk with me. Now first things first, what kind of game would this be? Now given the type of story ReZero is and the way that Subaru's return by death loop ability works, don't shoot me, but I think this screams visual novel. Now if you don't know what a visual novel is, it's basically a choice-based game where the player can influence and change the story via their decisions. Think Doki Doki Literature Club or some like the Walking Dead games except with more text and just anime. But mob, haven't almost all the ReZero games we've gotten in the past been visual novels? Haven't we seen this? Yes, but hear me out. This game wouldn't just be a visual novel, it'd be a visual novel roguelite. Let me explain. If you don't know what a roguelite is, think the game Hades. Your goal in that game is to fight and climb your way to Elysium from Hades. If you die, you get sent all the way back down to the start and have to try again from the beginning. However, dying isn't the end, it's kind of the point. And that's because every new death run reveals new dialogue, backstory, and character development. The plot develops. Now, when we start to combine elements from both these game genres, we start cooking. In this game, you play as Natsuki Subaru. And instead of making a completely new and original story, why don't we just have this game follow the events of the main series? You'll start from Arc 1 immediately after Subaru gets transported to Lagunica, except you'll be the one making the decisions in place of Subaru. Each arc can be split into multiple chapters, and your goal as Subaru will be to survive as long as possible to progress the story. Whether that be through gathering information, forming and nurturing the right relationships, and being smart during many of the scenarios the game will be constantly throwing at you. However, dying in this game would also be essential, because similar to a roguelite, when Subaru dies, his progress essentially gets reset and he restarts from a previous point. Except, Subaru has the benefit of remembering his past life, essentially bringing in new and future information from routes that haven't happened yet. So in this game, using new information that the player discovers through past death loops, Subaru will learn, survive, and progress the story. The game will literally be built around the fact that you will die multiple times. Now I can hear some of y'all thinking, okay, but if I know the story, wouldn't this game just be a retread of the anime in game form? Not exactly. Again, since you'll be the one in control, you will inevitably make decisions that will deviate you from some of the canon of the original story, thus making way for a multitude of branching paths. For example, what if during Arc 1 you decided to not help Amelia find her insignia right away? A decision like that could either have a very small or very big impact on the world and story, and would be reflected in the resulting path/route. And the game would literally be riddled with new routes like this. However, to make it even more interesting, how cool would it be if sin/if routes are also legitimate branching paths? Like if in Arc 1 the player chose not to ask for Reinhardt's help with the alleyway thug and ended up dying a bunch of times because of it, it only makes sense that you branch out into the pride route. Like along with discovering new and original branches/stories, the player would also be able to experience events from the main and if routes if they wanted to, and even add major variations to them depending on the decisions that they made further along that route. Now if you're a huge ReZero nerd and you just want to relive the events for the main/if routes by making all the same decisions that Subaru made, by all means you can do that. Shit, we'll even give you an achievement for it. However, the way this game would be intended to be played is with you at the helm making the decisions that you would think would be best during certain scenarios, not Subaru. Now I also think it's important to bring up that being familiar with the ReZero story will not make this game easier for you necessarily. Like during scenarios where someone is constantly killing you like in Arc 2 with Rem, although you might immediately know who it is, Subaru doesn't know that, and will have to naturally learn it himself through knowledge gained from hints, conversations, or previous loops based on decisions that you made. It would be a whole knowledge system similar to how The Walking Dead does it, where when Subaru learns something important on the top left of the screen, it could say something like Subaru will take note of that, and you'll be able to go from there. Now for this game to even work, two things need to be done. One, the series, at least the web novel, has to be completely finished. That way the game has the complete story to mess with. And second, the author Tappe Nagatsuki would not only have to oversee this project, but also provide story material. And that's because it's fucking Tappe. I don't know, I just feel like it'd be the perfect way after a story to expand the lore in a way that would engage the entire fucking fan base, especially with all the branching timelines tomfoolery. Believe it or not, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Now that we understand the basics, I haven't even begun to talk about what I find really interesting, which is the death mechanics. So let me explain to you how that would work in this game. Like always, lock in. But it's no surprise that one of the biggest draws to ReZero are Subaru's deaths and how they play into his ability. Return by death is such a unique power that it's low-key maddening how none of the previous games found a real creative way to utilize this. So in our game, let's actually do something interesting with it. In this game, there are going to be many things that will kill you in this world. Firstly, bad decisions. Similar to most choice games that you've played, The Walking Dead, Doki Doki, Detroit, the decisions and actions that you make will have major consequences on you in the story, and some might lead to death, including your own. So in this game, decide you want to take down the alleyway thugs in Arc 1 by yourself? Cool. Let's give you the choice on who to take down first. Choose the wrong nigga, and you gon' die. You get it. Secondly, poorly managed relationships. In this series, we've seen Subaru die at least once to almost everybody in Amelia's camp due to a lack of trust combined with suspicions that arose around some of his actions. And in this game, it'd be no different, because Subaru is a naturally suspicious person. He's a stranger from another world that just so happens to be at the right places at the right times and also smells like the witch. So you as the player will have to work extra hard talking, saying the right things, and checking up on different NPC characters to ensure that at the end of chapters, you do not get hoed by a person that should have trusted you. Now we're gonna expand on this a bit more, but hold that though. Then thirdly, yourself. Now there will be many scenarios as you play where you will massively fuck up your loop. Maybe a major character dies, maybe you lose an arm, or fuck up your leg, or maybe you just completely fumbled your bad bit. Regardless, there might be scenarios in where you want to manually restart a loop. However, unaliving is a very sensitive topic, and it shouldn't be trivialized no matter what it's in. It should have weight. point. So what I'm thinking is that in select certain scenarios and depending on the context, the player would have the option to manually activate return by death. And obviously when given the option, you're not just going to see a kill yourself button. You'd probably say something like restart. However, this would not be a get out of jail free card. When choosing to pursue an option like this, there would be major consequences, with the biggest being a major hit to Subaru's sanity bar. Now this is something I've been fucking waiting to tell y'all about, because I've never really seen something like this done before in a visual novel. So in our game, you're not just controlling an empty main character, you're controlling Subaru, an actual person. So I think it only makes sense that depending on some of the experiences that you put Subaru through, he'll take hits to his sanity. How I picture this is that there will be a visible bar either on the top or bottom of the screen that will deplete to some degree after every death witnessed or experienced by Subaru. Depending on your level of sanity during a given scene, your dialogue options might change a bit. However, if you let Subaru reach critically low sanity, shit starts to get wicked. Firstly, certain dialogue options will start to lock and Subaru will no longer act like himself. Shit, he'll even start making some of his own decisions, even if you click something different. Secondly, along with acting different, a slew of effects and events could take place. Firstly, the world could start visibly glitching, or maybe time starts skipping ahead, randomly jumping from day to night, or maybe even from days to weeks. Or maybe as another cool idea similar to the Wrath route, Subaru starts to no longer see the world in color, so the game turns black and white except for a few individuals. Or to steal an idea from the Pride route, since the more that Subaru dies, the stronger the witches sent around Subaru grow. Your low sanity mixed with the witch's miasma may unintentionally summon the witch's cult, and maybe they try to recruit you during certain loops. If you accept it, it'd lead to its own multitude of fucked up routes. Or lastly, maybe certain choices that you make start to get diluted. For example, maybe during a future scene with Rem, you're given the choice option to save her. You click it, but then your Subaru murders her instead, because in his mind, that's what he thinks saving her is. All in all, you can just assume that having a critically low sanity will lead you to the bad ending. Again, you shouldn't be rewarded for manually activating RBD or just dying a bunch of times, because then what's the point? As you progress the story, you should begin to learn and realize that there are going to be better ways to solve your obstacles that don't have to involve you dying a bunch of times. I think this is amazing as a mechanic because not only does it give you a limit to how many mistakes you're able to make, but it also prevents you from misusing return by death. Dying will always cost something, and as Subaru learned in Arc 4, choosing to throw your life away just because you have the ability to is not the right way to use return by death. I think this is also just perfect for ReZero fans, because y'all niggas swear up and down that y'all would be able to make better decisions than Subaru if you had his ability. So fuck it, in this game, try it and see how fast you end up fucking shit up. Now continuing on, I think that every time Subaru dies, the player should be given a death log. In this log, the player would be able to see their cause of death if Subaru figured out who or what killed him, the knowledge that you/Subaru gained that run, and an option of traits to carry into the next one. Now let me explain these. Now for the cause of death bit, I was thinking, okay, so most of the people playing this game would already be ReZero fans, so certain mysteries and parts of the game would be easy to blitz through, and I don't like that. So to prevent the player from trivializing certain events, I want to make it so that Subaru has to realize what's happening before any changes can be made. For example, in Arc 2, when Subaru's getting killed by Rem and Ram in the mansion, although we know it's them, the Subaru that you play as has to figure out that piece of information naturally, either through context clues or hints that are given throughout the game. For one of the death hints, I was thinking that maybe as you die and the screen cuts to black, sometimes Subaru would get a vision and the player would get text saying something like, a silver blade under the moon, and maybe when Subaru finds or figures out a key piece of information, similar to the Walking Dead games, on the top of the screen it could say something like, Subaru took note of this. Now on the death log, depending on Subaru's knowledge, the cause of death would either be question marks or list the cause of death. Secondly, for knowledge gain, under this would just be a list of all the important key information that you learned from all of your previous loops. Like along with information about what killed you, important information about certain characters would also pop up. For example, maybe you learned Rem's backstory from Ram in a previous loop, or maybe you learned that Amelia's real name isn't Satella. Gaining information like this that could greatly change the way a character might feel about you would be crucial in navigating this game correctly. And also, the player would have to be very careful when and where to reveal these pieces of information, because throughout the story, the game will try to trick and present scenarios and where, although you'll be able to reveal some of this information, if how you got some of this previous information doesn't add up, a character's suspicion of you will go up greatly and might even kill you. For example, maybe you learned about Rem's backstory from Ram in a previous loop, and after dying, you decided to skip this combo this time. You later bring it up to Rem and shit seems solid, but later in the middle of the night, you hear chains, and then all of a sudden, half your body gets taken. As you bleed out, the last thing you see is Rem, and then the last thing you hear before you die is Rem saying, only Roswell and Ram knew this piece of information about me, and you were with me all day. Be gone, witch cultist. And then she kills the fuck out of you. Now, this specific scenario is kind of ass, but you get the point. Anyways, the last thing on the death log would be the option of new traits. I think it'd be really cool if after every time you died, you got the option to choose between different traits/buffs that you could carry with you into the next loop. Nigga, I am so nerdy that I made a table that you can look at over here filled with like all the buffs and shit. So yeah, I don't know, maybe that would be cool. Now I know I've been talking for a while, but we're still not done. In this third section, let me just talk about like all the miscellaneous ideas and like questions I got on like my previous videos and shit about this video game idea, and then we'll like build off from there. And like always, lock in. Now first, I think the thing that I've been seeing the most is people asking how Subaru would gain his sanity back in the game. Since in my last video I explained that every time Subaru died or witnessed death, he'd take hits to his sanity bar. And I think that the best way to refill this bitch would be for the player to progress Subaru far enough in a loop to experience a heartfelt moment. ReZero is fucking riddled with heartfelt, emotional, and wholesome ass moments in every arc. Moments that not only help develop Subaru as a character, but that also serve as scenes of peace to balance Subaru between the insanity that are his death loop. And what I was thinking was that if a player progresses Subaru far enough into a loop to reach one of these scenes, Subaru's sanity bar either resets or levels a bit, kind of like you reach a checkpoint or bonfire. That way, the player is not only rewarded for making it that far into a loop, but also progressing the story. Maybe after these scenes, trust that certain characters have for you either drastically or permanently go up. So that means some of these other characters might no longer have to be threats for you to have to worry about or like keep up appearances around. Some examples of these scenes could be Subaru's first lab pillow scene, Subaru's conversation with Rem at the end of Arc 2, Subaru's conversation with Rem in the middle of Arc 3, Subaru's friend conversation with Otto in Arc 4, or maybe even Subaru's speech from Arc 5. Along with these scenes that soothe Subaru's sanity, I think there should also be scenes that kind of like fuck it up. Like during Shadow Garden scenes, his sanity should be off the fucking charts. Like you should be seeing 3 question marks above that bit. Or on the other hand, maybe during Witch's tea parties in Arc 4, Subaru's sanity bar is just non-existent because for whatever reason in that realm, Subaru's kind of disconnected from his like physical mental state. You get it, let's move on. Now the second thing I've seen people talk about a lot is just how unrealistic a game like this would be to make because of all the seemingly infinite options and just like routes there'd be. And while I understand a lot of these comments, a lot of them don't make much sense to me. Because yes, although there would be multiple like branching paths in this game, not every new route or decision made will lead to a drastically new outcome or timeline. I feel like what some people took from my last parts is that this game would just be some type of infinite route extravaganza, when obviously there would be some type of limit as to not make it too fanfiction. Because trust me, I understand, as cool as new routes and original content would be, this game would get bloated real fucking fast and also be a bitch to code and program. And not to mention budget, I know it gets crazy. So what I was thinking was that for the back-end choice mechanics similar to the Walking Dead game, different choices that you make can still lead you to the same outcome. And maybe only a few minor things change, we don't have to get crazy. Games like The Walking Dead or Detroit Become Human have been mastered handling multiple branching paths before, also in ways that don't get too convoluted. So we basically just do that. But except in this hypothetical ReZero game, since there'd be a lot more budget to use on story elements because they wouldn't be programming entire 3D models and shit, you would be able to be a little bit more ambitious. But real quick, speaking of Detroit, I really love their timeline flowchart system and how you're able to see all the paths that you've taken, could have taken, and how they all connect. And I feel like it's a no-brainer that this ReZero game should have something like that. Similar to what you see up here, I think that in every arc, the flowchart should detail every death, every route, and every decision that the player / Subaru made up to that point. And when you click on one of these dots, it not only explains what happened in that scene, but also what decisions that you made. And then when you finish an arc, you're able to see all the locked paths that you still have left to complete or unlock. But I also think for like a little extra oomph, instead of like these like regular purple lines connecting all the points, it should be the Witch of Envy's hand. Because if you think about it, it's through her return by death ability that Subaru's even able to loop and manipulate time like this in the first place. She has her hands in literally all of it. It writes itself. Now last and not least, I think we should finally talk about what the name of this game would be. Now while I was thinking about a clever name, I started to realize just how much I loved ReZero's renaming conventions. And you notice this most in its openings. Redo opening 1, Realize opening 3, Reweave opening 5. So I was thinking, how can I incorporate like a re prefix into this fucking title? And then I fucking got it. I think that the name of this game should be called ReZero Re-Requiem. Just Requiem. Now you may ask, why Requiem? Well, in English, a Requiem can either mean a mass / ceremony for the dead, or an act or token of remembrance. And I don't know if I'm crazy, but I feel like both these definitions fit the theme of this game and ReZero as a whole perfectly. Subaru's whole thing is that he dies a bunch of times, but the only thing that he can carry between his loops are his memories, remembrances. And if it's the renaming scheme, come on, bro. And that's the fucking game. I think with everything that I've kind of like put on the table, it is clear as day to see that I am fucking cooking. Bandai, shoot me an email, I will make y'all money. For real shit, y'all, I don't expect anything this complicated or nearly as like well thought out to be put out for ReZero anytime soon, unless they hire me. But for real, I just wanted to flex my creative juice. Any of y'all are really talented and you actually want to make this game using some of my ideas, all I'm gonna say is you better fucking credit me. I will die about this shit. But yeah, y'all, I make videos like this all the time. If you got something from this, please like, please follow, and also check out the Twitch. It would be greatly appreciated. That's pretty much it. Thank you for watching, and I'm gonna catch you.